The forest was quiet that evening, too quiet. Only the whisper of wind through dry leaves broke the silence. An old man tried to take another step, but his weak legs trembled. Beside him, his wife leaned against a tree, clutching his arm for balance. Her breathing was slow and heavy. They were lost, confused, and terrified. The car that had brought them here was gone. So were their children. Hours earlier, they had thought it was just a family trip, one last outing before the weather turned cold. Their son had smiled, their daughter-in-law had helped pack sandwiches, and the grandchildren had laughed as they drove through the narrow mountain road. The elderly couple had no reason to think anything was wrong. But now, as darkness wrapped around them, realization began to sink in. The car wasn't coming back. The husband called out his son's name, his voice breaking through the forest air, but only his echo returned. His wife held his hand tighter. "Maybe they went for help," she whispered, her eyes filled with denial more than hope. But deep down, she already knew. The blanket left behind. The half-eaten lunch. The silence, it all said the same thing. They had been left. A chill ran down her spine. The forest, once beautiful, now felt cruel. Their food was gone, their phones had no signal, and the night was closing in fast. The husband tried to be strong for her, but his heart was breaking. He had given everything to his children, his home, his savings, his health, and now, this. Unseen by them, someone watched from the shadows. A faint movement behind the trees, a distant flicker of light. Someone was there. The couple didn't notice, but the watcher did not take their eyes off them. Whether that person meant harm or help, that was something neither of them could have imagined. The night stretched long and cold. The forest air bit through their thin sweaters as the couple huddled near an old stump, trying to stay warm. The woman rested her head on her husband's shoulder, whispering prayers under her breath. Her voice trembled, not just from fear but from heartbreak. "Why would they do this?" she asked, her words almost lost in the wind. The old man didn't answer. He couldn't. Every thought in his mind screamed the same question, but no answer made sense. The sound of branches snapping in the distance made them both look up. Their tired eyes searched the darkness. The old man reached for a fallen branch, clutching it tightly like a weapon, though his shaking hands could barely hold it. "It's probably an animal," he murmured, trying to calm her. But inside, he wasn't sure. There was something different about this sound. Cautious steps, deliberate movement. Someone was out there. Hours passed before the first hint of dawn appeared. The forest lightened to a dull grey, revealing mist floating low over the ground. The woman's lips were pale, her face drawn with exhaustion. The man helped her stand, each step a struggle. They followed a narrow path downhill, hoping it would lead somewhere, anywhere. But the deeper they walked, the more the trees closed in, and the forest seemed endless. They stopped near a stream to drink. The water was cold, sharp, but it gave them a few moments of strength. The woman noticed something strange, footprints on the other side. Not theirs. Someone had been there recently. "Maybe it's hikers," she said, her voice faintly hopeful. The man nodded, though something in his gut told him those weren't hikers' prints. They were too large, too deliberate. Then, just as they turned to move again, they heard it, the crunch of leaves, closer this time. The woman clung to her husband's arm. "Who's there?" the old man shouted, but the forest swallowed his words. No answer came, just silence, then another sound, slow breathing from behind a tree. The man took a hesitant step forward, his heart racing. A shadow shifted, and before he could speak, a figure stepped into view. It wasn't an animal. It was a person. A man, tall, wearing a dark jacket and carrying a flashlight. His eyes met theirs, calm but unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. The old couple froze. We were left," the old man stammered. The stranger didn't reply right away. He just looked at them, scanning their worn faces, their trembling hands. "Left," he repeated. His tone carried disbelief and something else, anger, maybe sadness. He motioned for them to follow. "There's a cabin nearby," he said. "You'll freeze if you stay out here." The old man hesitated, but his wife's weak grip on his arm told him they had no choice. The stranger led the way through a narrow path, his flashlight slicing through the fog. The couple followed slowly, their feet dragging, hearts still unsure if they were being saved or led into danger. After several minutes, they reached a small wooden cabin hidden behind thick pines. Smoke curled from its chimney, faint but real. The stranger opened the door and guided them inside. The warmth hit them immediately, and for the first time in hours, the woman's hands stopped shaking. The interior was simple: a single table, a few chairs, a fireplace, and old photographs hanging on the wall. The man handed them blankets. "Sit," he said. His voice was firm but gentle. As they sat near the fire, the couple finally found words. The woman explained everything: how their son had taken them on a trip, how they'd stopped for lunch, and how the car had driven away without warning. The stranger listened quietly, his eyes fixed on the flames. When she finished, silence filled the cabin. The man sighed and spoke softly, almost to himself. "People do cruel things," he said, "especially to those who gave them everything." The woman nodded, tears welling up again. "We never thought our own children could." Her voice broke. The stranger looked up then, his expression unreadable. "You're not the first ones I've found here," he said. "You're lucky I was watching." The old man frowned, confusion mixing with unease. "Watching?" The stranger leaned back in his chair. "There are things in these woods," he said slowly. "Some people come here to forget. Others, to make sure no one comes back." The fire crackled louder, as if to fill the silence that followed. The couple exchanged a worried glance. The woman's trembling hand found her husband's, and for a brief second, she thought she saw movement in the window's reflection, something outside. The stranger stood up suddenly and walked to the door. "Stay here," he said, "and don't open this door for anyone." Then he stepped out into the mist, leaving the couple staring after him, hearts pounding, as the forest swallowed the sound of his footsteps. The couple waited in silence after the stranger left. The cabin felt suddenly larger, colder. The old man could still hear the crunch of footsteps fading away outside, then nothing. The woman whispered, "Do you think he'll come back?" Her voice trembled like a child's. He tried to sound calm. "He said he would. We'll wait." But even as he said it, doubt crept into his mind. Minutes turned to hours. The fire crackled and dimmed. Shadows crawled along the walls. Every creak of the wood made them look up. The woman dozed off in her chair, her hands still wrapped around his. The man stared at the window, half expecting to see someone watching from the darkness. Then came the noise again, faint, distant, like metal clanging. The man stood, straining his ears. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. His wife stirred, startled. The sound grew louder, closer. He moved to the window, lifted the curtain a little. At first, he saw nothing but fog. Then, a flash of light, like a flashlight beam cutting through the mist, moving fast. Before he could react, the door opened. It was the stranger, breathing heavily, mud on his boots. "We have to go," he said sharply. "Now." The couple froze. "What's happening?" the old man asked. The stranger looked toward the woods. "Someone's out there. They know you're here." Fear spread through the room. The old woman gasped. "Who?" she asked. The man grabbed her coat, urging her up. The stranger didn't answer, just grabbed his bag and motioned toward the back door. "No time. Follow me." Quietly. They stepped into the freezing air. The forest, once silent, now felt alive with movement. In the distance, faint lights flickered, too steady to be fireflies, too organized to be random. The stranger led them down a hidden path, his flashlight off now, moving fast but silent. The woman stumbled on a root, and the stranger quickly helped her up. "Almost there," he whispered. "Stay close." Behind them, a crack echoed, a branch breaking underfoot. The man turned, heart racing. He thought he saw shapes, 2, maybe 3, moving between the trees. They reached an old, rusted truck half hidden behind rocks. The stranger opened the door and motioned for them to climb in. The engine coughed but started. "Hold on," he said. Gravel crunched under the tires as they sped down a narrow, uneven trail. The old man clutched his wife's hand, his mind spinning. "Who are they?" he asked. The stranger's jaw tightened. "People who don't want this forest found," he muttered. "Not after what happened here." The woman frowned. "What happened?" she asked. The stranger didn't respond right away. Instead, he slowed the truck near a small wooden bridge, the planks creaking as they crossed. "This place used to be a village," he said finally. "Years ago. When the logging company shut down, people left, but not all of them. Some stayed." They didn't want anyone coming back. Not even the police. The couple sat in silence, eyes wide. "Why us?" the old man asked softly. "We don't even know this place." The stranger looked at him through the rearview mirror. "You do now," he said. Suddenly, a light flashed behind them, headlights cutting through the fog. The stranger cursed under his breath. "They're following us." He turned sharply off the road, the truck bouncing as it tore through a muddy path. The old woman screamed as a branch shattered the side mirror. After a few tense minutes, they came to a stop behind a hill. The stranger killed the lights and listened. Nothing. Only the wind. He exhaled slowly. "We'll be safe for now." The couple sat trembling. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Why would our children leave us here?" she whispered. The stranger turned toward her, his face softening. "Because they didn't think anyone would find you," he said. "But someone always watches." He stepped out of the truck and looked toward the horizon where the first light of dawn touched the mist. The forest looked peaceful again, almost innocent. But deep inside, something darker still waited, and the couple, exhausted and broken, had only begun to uncover what the woods were hiding. The air outside grew colder as the fog began to lift, revealing the winding path ahead. The old couple sat in the back seat, exhausted, their hands still locked together. The stranger stood by the truck, scanning the trees with cautious eyes. His silence was heavy, like he was listening for something the others couldn't hear. The woman finally broke the quiet. "Where will we go now?" she asked softly. Her voice carried both fear and fragile hope. The stranger turned to her, his face still half in shadow. "There's a ranger station a few miles down this road," he said. "If we make it there, you'll be safe." The old man looked doubtful. "Safe from who?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. The stranger hesitated before answering. "From the ones who left you here. And from the ones who helped them do it." The woman's breath caught. "Help them?" she repeated, confused. "Why would anyone help our children?" The man didn't reply right away. He started the truck again, his eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. "Because sometimes greed runs deeper than blood," he said quietly. The road twisted between tall pines and sharp turns, the early light breaking through in thin silver strands. The woman rested her head against the window, trying to fight off tears. Every bump on the road seemed to echo memories, birthdays, family dinners, their children's laughter. She couldn't understand how love could turn into something so cruel. The stranger slowed the truck near a small clearing. "We'll stop here," he said. "The engine's overheating." He got out and lifted the hood, steam hissing into the cold air. The couple stayed inside, silent, watching him work. Minutes later, the woman gasped. Out in the trees, a flicker of movement. The same steady, deliberate kind of movement she had seen before. "His back," she whispered. The old man leaned forward. Two figures were walking through the fog. Not the stranger. Someone else. The stranger noticed them too. He shut the hood quietly and motioned for the couple to stay down. "Don't move," he said under his breath. He grabbed a flashlight, switched it off, and crouched near the front bumper. The two figures came closer, talking in hushed tones. One carried a small lantern, its dim glow revealing faces that made the woman's stomach twist, her son and daughter-in-law. Her lips parted in shock. "It's them," she whispered. "It's our children." The old man's hand shook as he reached for her. The stranger stayed silent, eyes narrowing. The couple outside looked angry, desperate, not like people searching for their parents, but like people searching for a problem that refused to disappear. The daughter-in-law spoke first. "They can't have gone far," she said, her tone cold. "If someone finds them, everything falls apart." Her son nodded. "We'll say they wandered off. No one will question it." The woman in the truck pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. Her heart broke all over again. She couldn't understand the words she was hearing, her own child planning to erase her completely. The stranger looked back at the couple, whispering, "Stay quiet." He slipped into the shadows, moving silently around the truck. The couple outside stopped, glancing around like they sensed something. Then, a sudden voice cut through the silence, deep, firm, and angry. "Looking for someone." It was the stranger. He stepped out of the fog, standing between them and the truck. The sun froze, his face pale. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Doesn't matter," the stranger said. But I saw what you did. The daughter-in-law's voice trembled now. You don't know anything. The stranger took another step forward. I know enough. Leaving your parents in the woods? That's not forgetting, that's killing. The son's jaw tightened. You don't understand. We didn't have a choice. The stranger tilted his head. There's always a choice. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. Then, from the truck, the old man opened the door. His voice was weak but steady. Why, son? He asked. The younger man turned, startled. His face shifted, anger fading into panic. Dad, you weren't supposed to. Supposed to what? His father interrupted. Die quietly. Tears filled the old woman's eyes as she stepped out too, clutching her coat tight. The stranger moved closer to them, standing like a barrier. The son took a step back. The forest around them was completely still, like it, too, was waiting to see what would happen next. The daughter-in-law whispered something to her husband, but he didn't respond. His face twisted with guilt and fear. We just wanted to be free, he said finally, his voice cracking. We couldn't afford it anymore. The stranger's eyes stayed cold. So you decided to bury your problems in the woods. No one spoke after that. The sound of the wind filled the silence again, brushing through the trees, carrying the weight of everything that had been said. The stranger looked toward the road ahead, faint tire tracks leading deeper into the mist. Then he turned back to the trembling couple and said quietly, It's time to go. The old woman took one last look at her son, her heart too broken for words, and then followed the stranger into the fading light of morning. The road ahead twisted through the mountains like a scar, quiet and cold under the morning fog. The old couple sat in the back of the truck, wrapped in blankets. Their faces were pale, eyes red from everything they'd just heard. The stranger drove without saying a word, his jaw tight, his focus steady. No one dared to speak. The forest passed by slowly, trees leaning in like silent witnesses. The woman finally broke the stillness. Her voice was barely a whisper. He was my son, she said, almost to herself. My little boy. The words hung heavy in the air. The old man reached for her hand, his rough fingers trembling. We did our best, he said softly, but there was no comfort in his tone, only sadness and disbelief. The stranger glanced at them in the mirror. You shouldn't blame yourselves, he said quietly. Some people lose their way. His words were gentle, but his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the narrow road ahead. The truck hit a bump, and something metallic rattled under the seat. The woman looked down and noticed a small leather bag the stranger had kept near his boots. A corner of paper peeked out, old and creased. She didn't ask about it, but she noticed how quickly he moved it back into place when he saw her looking. A few miles later, they reached an old bridge crossing a river. The wood creaked beneath the tires as they rolled across. On the other side, a small cabin came into view, older than the last one, but sturdy. Smoke drifted lazily from its chimney. The stranger parked near the porch and turned off the engine. You'll be safe here for a while, he said. The couple looked around, uncertain. Whose place is this? The old man asked. Used to belong to my father, the stranger replied. He was a ranger here. Knew every inch of these woods. The woman's eyes softened. So you grew up here, she said. He nodded. Until everything changed. The tone in his voice made them stop asking questions. The woman stepped out of the truck, stretching her sore legs. The mountain air smelled of pine and smoke. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of safety, small, fragile, but real. Inside the cabin, the air was warm. The stranger poured water into a pot and set it on the stove. You'll need to rest, he said. I'll head into town soon. Let someone know you're alive. The old man frowned. Town. Won't they? They'll have questions, the stranger interrupted. And I'll have answers. The couple exchanged a look. They didn't know who this man really was or why he'd been in the forest that night. But something about his calmness made them trust him, at least for now. As the water began to boil, the woman's eyes wandered to a photo on the mantel. It was faded and dusty, a younger man in uniform standing beside a tall ranger tower. The same face as the stranger, just younger, smiling. That's you, she said softly. He nodded, not looking up. That was a long time ago, before the forest took everything. The old man tilted his head. The forest? The stranger stirred the pot and finally looked up. People disappeared here years ago. Families, workers. They said it was accidents, bad weather, lost trails. But it wasn't. The couple exchanged a nervous glance. Then what was it? The woman asked. The stranger paused for a long moment before answering. It was greed, he said finally. Same as what almost killed you. The words hit hard, sinking into the silence. The old man leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. I never thought I'd live to see my own son turn into that, he said quietly. The stranger looked at him with something that almost resembled pity. You lived, he said. That's what matters now. Outside, the wind picked up, whistling through the cracks in the cabin walls. Somewhere far off, an echo rang, faint, metallic, like the sound of a car door closing. The woman stiffened. They wouldn't come back, would they? The stranger moved to the window and peered out into the mist. Not if they're smart, he said. But there was a flicker of something else in his eyes, a thought he didn't say aloud. The forest, still and cold, stretched endlessly beyond the cabin. The trees swayed gently, their branches whispering secrets no one could hear. And though the couple finally sat beside the fire, safe for the moment, the feeling lingered, that something, or someone, was still watching. The stranger sat across from them, the light from the flames flickering across his face. His hand rested on the same leather bag, the one he'd hidden before. Whatever was inside, it seemed to weigh more than gold. The couple didn't ask about it. Maybe they didn't want to know. Outside, the fog began to thicken again, curling like smoke between the trees. The old woman closed her eyes, whispering a prayer of thanks, her voice trembling. But as the last embers of daylight faded, the stranger glanced once more toward the dark forest, and the faint sound of footsteps echoed, far too close to be just the wind.